right, guys, this is Chatting the Spear podcast, episode number 2. And I got my guy Jay with me. James could not be with us tonight, so we only have 2 out of the 3 members of the podcast with us today. But I hope you all enjoy me and Jay's smiling face. If you can see us on YouTube and subscribe to the channel, you can be able to see his smiling face every time that we hit the record button. Jay, how you doing, man?
Hey Central, man, I'm doing good, man. Hey, shout out to James, man. I know he probably dealing with a lot right now, so sending my thoughts his way and my prayers his way. So, yeah, man, I'm doing good though, Central, man. How you doing, bro?
Man, I've been doing pretty good, man. I know that we've last week we started to talk about everything. We had a great conversation the last time. We had a lot of viewers. I think we were up to 85 views for the first podcast episode. So that's really cool to think about. And we're just continuing to grow the brand as we kind of go through. And positive episode. As a reminder, we try to keep these under 30 minutes. We try to keep them short, sweet, to the point. And we were trying to figure out some topics to talk about, and Jay kind of gave us some ideas on what to talk about. And I think these are some pretty good topics, and I think y'all will really enjoy some of the topics we're going to bring to the table today. We're going to focus mainly on the defensive backfield. And this is a situation where you're trying to look at the different pieces that you have in the defensive backfield. You have a guy like Renato Green. You also have a guy like Akeem Dent who, coming in, and he's been there in the program for quite some time. You got a Shaheem Brown. There's a lot of different guys in this room. And then you're even adding a guy like Ventrell Cypress from the transfer portal. How do you think everything is going to gel with this unit together? And do you think there's primarily a leader in this room, or do you think it's more so a collective effort right now?
With the guys we have, I think because if I'm being honest, I would think it'd either be between Ventrell Cypress and probably like Renato Green.
Yeah.
But I know Ronaldo is really not. He's not really the talkative guy. Jamie. I think Jamie had to really develop into that. But I think Ronaldo is more. He's the more like lead by example. So I think he's that type of guy. So I do see it between Ventrell Cypress and Ronaldo Green. Hopefully we get somebody to like stand up and really lead the guys, talk to the guys, and just be that vocal point in the secondary room. But how you feel, man? Like, what you think? Who you think could be the leader in
And I'm
there?
kind of torn between a couple of guys, but I mean, you talked about it before with Jamie Robinson going to the NFL. We were all kind of waiting for that surprise aspect, and with Jared Verse and Fabian Lovett and those guys returning to Florida State, we all thought maybe there was a slim chance that Jamie Robinson can come back to Florida State. That unfortunately was not the case, but you got a pleasant surprise in Renardo Green that actually had a really, really good year. Everybody was kind of surprised because he was at cornerback, went to safety, now back to cornerback. I mean, when you have position moves like that, and we even see it with a guy like Travis Jay, super ultra talented, but the problem is he can't piece everything together right now. And I hope he really does this season. Maybe this is kind of his coming out party wherever they put him. Maybe it might be at safety, maybe it might be at corner. But I think with Green this year, I think he really showcased, and you saw in that LSU game, he laid the lumber on some of those guys, and he was an absolute lockdown corner this year. But you're bringing in a guy like Cypress, like you said. I think this is a guy that he's had a couple of down years at Virginia. You really didn't know what to expect. But last year, he absolutely put the world on notice at that point. He had an 87 PFF grade at that point. He was basically a guy you can really rely on in terms of getting turnovers. And we all know that when you look at some of those guys that we have in that room, like Akeem Dent, we talk about the safety position. You really don't know what to expect from that safety position. Will it be a Shaheem Brown that steps in for Jamie Robinson? And I think when you're looking at the back half of the defense, you're kind of looking and saying, well, I don't know if there's a leader quite yet in that defense, but it has to be between Green and Cypress just because of the experience they bring to the table. And I think that's very important to kind of understand. But I think those two guys have got to be the leaders in that room, and they can be guys that can be successful.
Man, I'm not gonna lie, man. When you said that, man, it kind of dawned on me, man. I've been seeing like some little like talks here and there,
Mm.
like on Twitter
Yeah.
specifically. How would you feel if they move Kevin Knowles to the safety position?
You know, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but the problem is he's only, I think, 5'10", 5'11". So he's a little bit on the smaller side. I'm almost in the kind of field where I kind of want to see a guy like Omarion Cooper move to a safety. From Lehigh originally, I think this is a guy that you can really learn to, and this is a guy that kind of struggled a little bit at times at cornerback. I think he can find his footing at a safety position. Maybe it might be a Jarian Jones. Maybe you like him more in that position because Jarian already plays outside corner. He plays slot corner. He plays nickel. There's a lot of different ways that you can kind of turn to there. But man, I mean, it's a good problem to have.
Exactly, and I totally agree. Like Kevin knows, like I think he provide like really good instincts. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be honest, I don't think he was like I don't think he was healthy for a good part
Mm,
of the season, and I think that really played a lot into how he played this season. Not saying that he played bad. It was good. It was good enough, you know.
yeah.
So I think yeah, like I do think he provide like a lot of instincts. He's not scared to come up and tackle.
Yeah.
Very steady Eddie, like Coach I can say,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, I do agree. Mario Cooper, like you seen it his freshman year. Like he's a ball hawk. You know what I'm saying? I do think he'll really exceed at the safety position. You know, Jerry Jones, he played safety when he was at Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
He played safety when he was a lot of people don't notice about Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones played wide receiver in high school. He did
Yeah.
some everything in high school, you know. It just you have to really, you know, find the right position for these guys. I think we have like a lot of pieces in the secondary room that can
Mm.
play multiple positions. Travis J, for example, he played corner. He wasn't a bad corner. I do feel like being that we, you know what I'm saying, when we hired Patrick Surtain, I feel like I think he's the right guy to really lead Travis J into being the player that we know he is. Um, I think Travis J, I think he'll really excel at the safety position. I think we got guys that can really do good at the safety position, bro.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of allude to your point about Travis Shea as well. You saw in that Notre Dame game when everybody was pumped up for that game. Unfortunately, Florida State lost in that game, but you saw a lot of instances where Travis Shea was in position to make a good play, just didn't turn his head around enough, didn't make a play on the ball. It was kind of like a situation where maybe he might be a safety, more so a safety. I mean, just seeing the field and having that comfort level. And I mean, he can play at a variety of different positions, and he even played Wildcat quarterback in high school. I mean, this is a situation where Travis Shea is a very, very talented player, and can he piece everything together? I think is a big question mark with everything. But I wanted to kind of learn this to another position in terms of questioning. And this was a guy that everyone was so excited about going into last season. They thought that he may be able to migrate into a starting role, and that's Azaria Thomas. This is a situation where he is a younger guy. They really like him at that safety and cornerback position. They primarily have him at cornerback so far. High 4-star prospect, and everyone was talking about him and Sam McCall having that situation there where they're both gelling together. Sam McCall unfortunately transferred out of the program to Texas A&M, and we wish him nothing but the best. But Thomas is kind of in a situation where he's trying to develop into his own. He's being a reserve and trying to figure out his way into that starting rotation. So with that being said, how do you think Thomas is going to kind of play this season in terms of being that starter? Do you think he has a potential to be that way, or do you think it may be still a learning process for him right now?
I'm gonna be honest, man. I think his development gonna be a little bit on the quicker side. You
Mm-hmm.
know, with all the rumblings and all that stuff during spring this past season,
Yeah,
man, I think it's gonna be right now that we see a lot of Azaria flying around
yeah,
the field. And you can even see like his body, just his body size,
mm-hmm.
like 6'2". You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? He already got that build. He don't have a build like a freshman. And that's another guy that I think you could test him out a little bit to see, what positions, like safety, corner, like they already got him at corner. I'm curious to see what they're gonna do with him in the secondary room this year.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see how everybody plays out because we've named so many different names at the cornerback position and also at the safety position. We've had a couple of guys there, But it's just like, Pat Surtain's got a lot to work with. And, if these guys kind of underperform and everything like that, and these guys don't really do exactly how we plan out to be, do you think Pat Surtain can kind of get a pass with that situation, with him being a first-year head coach or coach in general? Or do you think it's going to be a situation where fans might be a little skeptical because of the Marcus Woodson situation ending there, and he may not be cut out for the job? You know how Florida State Twitter, or FSU Twitter is.
Hey, Central, I'm not gonna tell no story. I have to mention this before I answer the question. You are too smooth, bro. You're too smooth, bro. I love it, bro. You smooth with the questions. That's good. I like that, Central. But man, like, God, that was so smooth. It threw me off guard for a little bit. But I do believe he deserves a pass, because this is not the group. Although I think this will be a good group, but this is not the group that he recruited. On top of, it just take time. Like football is not one of those type of deals where you just up in the morning and then you good. It take time. You have to build it. You know what I'm saying? You have to take, just be able to instill what you into the guys. That don't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see anybody tripping, on him if the DBs play, I guess, bad. I guess. So yeah, I think he'll get all the time that he needs. And I think Coach Norvell, he understands that, everything takes time. This is not a microwave type deal. This is an oven type deal. So I think he'll get a pass if things don't go well this season.
And Pat Surtain was talking about in the press conferences that he had before, he wanted to have turnovers and generate those turnovers, something Florida State hasn't really done so much. We still kind of get PTSD from the turnover backpack and some other things that we had done in the past. But the real fact of the matter is Florida State only had 8 interceptions last year. It's not really enough, when you're looking at that. And I mean, when you're looking back at some of the interception numbers that we had, I mean, one of those interceptions was Jamie Robinson. I mean, that was the situation there. And surprisingly enough, and a guy that we don't even really talk about in the defensive backfield room is Greedy Vance. He had 3 of them. 3. Miami fans know that quite well because, Jake Garcia likes to throw to nobody. And, when you look at that, I mean, there's a situation where Florida State has to generate turnovers this year. And I think that's a big problem for Florida State. If they want to be successful in the national media type of things, you have to find a way to generate turnovers. And I think that's very important going forward there. You have to find guys that are going to generate those turnovers and get your offense the ball back because, as we know, this offense has got some playmakers. And Coach Surtain and Coach Norvell actually know about that.
Exactly, and he even said, like, in his press conference, he was saying, like, the biggest thing he seen was the guys not getting their head around.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, I got to be honest. Like, I seen that a lot on Twitter. Like, I've been seeing a lot of people say that on Twitter. And, like, I can't lie to you. Like, they've been right. Like, I think the biggest issue, like, guys been in place. Like, Travis J, guys been in place a lot. So, it's nothing wrong with what they're doing. The only thing is probably just, like, getting their head around. It's the small stuff. The small stuff is what really, pay off. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, man, I think with Patrick Surtain coming in now, I think he'll be able to get the guys, going, and getting those interceptions, those turnovers, that's what we really need. We DBU, man. Come on. Jesus Christ.
And you got to think about it too. I mean, we're returning guys like Fabian Lovett. We're getting Jared Verse back, Patrick Payton. When you're having that sort of pass rush and that defensive line, that caliber of defensive line, you're going to be able to get some of that momentum on your defensive backfield. And I think that's very important because, I mean, if Jared Verse is coming off the edge right there and, the quarterback has to get rid of it somehow. If they get a little flustered, if you throw a slant route, next thing you know, somebody's kind of reading that slant route pretty quickly, man, that could be a pick six. And we're going back to the Terrell Buckley days where he's running pick sixes back to the end zone.
I'll tell you, man. And it's almost like in a 2021 season, our defensive line was really, really good. And I don't know, I don't have like a stat sheet in front of me right now, but I do know it feel like we was getting like specifically the back half of the the schedule.
Yep.
In 2021, it seemed like we was getting a lot of turnovers when everything started clicking. I remember Jarvis Brownlee getting an interception versus Florida. Jamie Robinson got an interception versus Florida. So I know for a fact, like if the defensive line, if everything clicking on the like the defensive line, the front seven, it's
That's right.
gonna make it easy for the DBs. If the DBs eating, it's gonna make it easier for the defensive line and the linebacker. So it just everything just work together.
And I will add on to Jay's point because I am looking at the stat sheet from the 2021 season, and we did have 8 interceptions on the 22 season, but we had 14 interceptions from the 2021 season. So there is a big jump. And like you said, whenever we had that kind of 0-4 stretch, we were trying to find ourselves. We went on a 5-3 8-game stretch there at the end, and you saw those turnovers started to happen. You saw a confident type of person. I think the biggest thing I think with that, when you can kind of point to, is a Marion Cooper kind of getting into that starting role and then kind of developing himself later on in the season. And also with Akeem Dent as well. He was kind of getting alongside Jamie Robinson. And I think that was very important with everything going on because you had to find guys to step up. And I think those guys stepped up in a huge way.
Exactly. I say the same thing. And then it's almost like I think when they move Jamie Robinson like to safety too, they rolled Kevin Knowles into nickel.
Yep.
I think that also helped, like just with the chemistry and everything. You had Jamie Robinson, Akeem Dent back there. I think that helped with the chemistry, but it also helps when you have Jermaine Johnson going off, getting 3 sacks, getting 3 sacks a game, and all that type of stuff. So, like I say, like everything just worked together.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people blame Fuller for certain things on the defensive coordinator spot. Some people don't really like him, but you said it best. I mean, he is putting players in good positions to do that, and sometimes it just requires the player to make the play. Sometimes it may just be a wrong spot at that point that the players aren't really playing together. There's just a lot of aspects that go into it, and as the team always says, you can't keep finger pointing at other players. I mean, you can't say, oh, well, this player didn't do their job and you didn't do your job either. So I guess we're both screwed at that point. You have to understand this is a team effort. This is a collective effort. So Adam Ford will take the blame for himself at times, and he will say, hey, I didn't do something right. We probably should have run something different. But as I talked about with the game against Florida, or I think it was actually the game against Clemson, actually, Kevin Knowles came off of a slot blitz, coming all the way down, missed on DJU, and next thing you know, he throws a 50-yard pass for a touchdown there, and it was an absolute heartbreaker at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Even the play in 2021 when Kevin Knowles, I actually thought it was a pretty clean play.
Mm-hmm.
Some may say that was like the play that kind of like took the game from us a little bit. I low key do agree, but I don't think it's on Kevin Knowles. I think it was a very clean play. But the thing is, he didn't get his head around.
Yep.
And, it's the small stuff. Like, I think if he would have got his head around, being that the receiver was bigger than him, if he would have got his head around, I low-key think we could have won the game, to be honest with you, bro. So, like, it's the small things, like just building chemistry, everything locking in together. And that's what make a good defense in all, a good team.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and just kind of finish this last point up before we kind of end the podcast for today. But just talking about that continuity that we've had throughout the staff, throughout the players. I mean, we've had a lot of returning players coming back and everything. When you have that experience and those guys that want to be there and want to be successful, your team is only going to go up from there. They talk about the climb and how they want to be successful. I think that's the only way you become successful is if you trust in one another and don't play the blame game. You always try to make the next play your best play. And I think that's very important to understand, especially with some of the Florida State fans. I know it can be hard to get frustrated, but this team understands what they have to do. You saw as of last season with the 10-3 record, you have to continue to develop each other, and you can't accept for short-term success. You want to always go for long-term success, and you have to know your worth at the end of the day.
Yes, sir. And Central just gave everybody a life quote just then. Your next move, make it your best move. I love it, Central. I love it, man.
Man, it was a pleasure as always, Jay, to come on here for this second episode. I know a lot of people were ready for this second episode. We try to do these once a week because I know there is a limited amount of topics that we can talk about in terms of Florida State football in the offseason. But once we have a little bit more topics, as spring gets closer and closer, spring practices do start on March the 6th. That is something to monitor and mark your calendars for. Recruiting stuff is coming right around the corner as well. And the spring game, of course, is going to be in the middle of April. It's going to be super excited, and I know everyone is wanting to enjoy everything. We're going to have to see Jay's smiling face at some of these events and everything, and we're going to have to do what we got to do, man. But I really appreciate it as always. And be sure to hit Jay up on his social media accounts. We will try to link all of our social media accounts, including James, in the description that we have also. And I think it's going to be an exciting time as we continue to develop this podcast the way that we like to do, in a positive manner. And as always, everyone, I hope you all have a great rest of the night, and go Noles.
Go Noles, man.